other 3 steps that we've just gone through. So your student walks in his senior year. Music has chosen him. He's had the proper training. Didn't wear jeans and sandals to his audition. He's followed through the admission process, done the essays, done the recommendations, applied early for admission, and now we get to the last piece, cost. Okay, let's talk about that to start out with. The worst economic crisis in 80 years. I can tell you in my position at Fredonia as a Chief Enrollment Officer, I get a chance to see both sides. I've been the Director of Admissions. In my position now, I serve as Director of Financial Aid as Associate VP still. Oftentimes, parents feel like they're at a real disadvantage. And I don't want to speak for Fredonia because I want to make this generic. But I can tell you at my institution, we have 1,200 music applications for 130 spots. Our music students drive our selectivity. So, once they're accepted, oh my God, it's my job in the financial aid office to close. I want those kids. Those are my we all have institutional selectivity goals. And believe me, those are how we market ourselves. The U.S. News and World Reports of the world rank us. So oftentimes parents feel like, I feel like it's such a bureaucracy and I can't get an answer. Well, let me tell you something. You got a bright student applying. You've just turned the tables on us. Because when you make that call in April and May, okay, we'll get a little bit about how you make your students and parents good educated consumers like the Sims commercial. But boy, when you turn the tables on me, and I have a Group 1 student, I'm going to do my best to find some extra money. Okay, so I want to make that clear. Let me just tell you something else about the worst economic crisis. Right now in the financial aid office, I do every appeal. So when someone's filing that free application for federal student aid, for the current year, 10-11, they're using 2009 income. Now if something changes from 2009, death, separation, divorce, loss of job, unemployment, one-time fluctuation in income, we have the ability to go in the financial aid office and start over. Redo everything. It's called professional judgment. I've done every one of those this year. And I can tell you those kinds of requests are up 65% at my institution. So there's always the opportunity to revisit for lots of different reasons. I did an appeal yesterday morning where a mom's house has shifted and it's about to go into the creek. Seriously, Army Corps of Engineers are there. They're not going to cover it. No insurance, no money back. I've reduced their income from $150,000 to 0. That's called professional judgment. So your kids, your parents need to know. And the only way we find out about that, there's no way on the financial aid form, there's no way on the CSS profile, because some private schools have an additional form that they're looking for, that you can tell the school, time out, something's up. So it's critical that they sit down, they make that call, they write that letter, because we can redress, and we do. So bottom line, everybody, all right, in the financial aid office, we're trying to close, all right? And so we need to know when those kinds of things are happening. More than ever before, cost, price, and return on investment are huge. I can tell you in Western New York, we've met our enrollment goals. We've had 3 record application years at Fredonia, but we are getting kicked by community colleges. The bright kids are staying home and going to community college. And maybe I don't know what you guys are seeing, but even the kids who are going to 4-year schools, all right, are staying close. Room and board at our school is $5,000 a semester. That's $10 grand a year. Another reason why schools are digging into their endowments, doing bigger discounting to close and get those students on our campuses. So the disadvantage, I don't see it as a parent disadvantage. Your parents need to know they can negotiate. And you talked earlier about cost. I always tell families, have a folder. You're applying to 5 schools. I'd put 5 different sheets of paper in that folder. If you're applying to Syracuse, University of Rochester, Geneseo, Citadel, I'd find out what it costs to go to those schools. All that information is on the website. Direct and indirect costs, tuition, fees, room, food, books, personal travel. That's how we're going to package your child. So whatever U of R's cost, I'd put it on a sheet of paper. A SUNY school, a 4-year out-of-state private, 4-year out-of-state public. And then what I would tell your families to do is, and we all have these on our website, they're called EFC calculators. Because the free application for federal student aid is going to drive federal student aid packaging and need-based packaging. And there may be an additional scholarship like the profile that sort of puts all the information into what's called a formula called institutional methodology. But we have these EFC calculators where parents can go in and they can answer 10 or 11 questions. That FAFSA basically takes a Kodak, a snapshot, a Polaroid of that family's ability to contribute to college. It comes up with what's called an EFC, an expected family contribution. Across the country, every school takes that EFC, subtracts it from what it costs to go to school, and that's where we get our package. Cost minus EFC equals need. Parents don't know what their EFC is. So back to that size Sims, you know when they find out? They go in January 5th, because we tell our applicants apply as soon as you can in January. That's another thing. They got to apply early. They got to apply early for admission, but oh my God, they've got to apply early for financial aid. At my institution, we have 2 packaging groups for freshmen. On time, this is financial aid packaging. On time and late. What do we look at when we bring their FAFSA in? When did the federal government process it? Did they process it through the first 3 weeks of January? Put them in our on-time group. My best money goes to people who are on time. You may be eligible for loads of money, but you filed your FAFSA after January 21st. Guys, after January 21st, all right, you're late. Now the application is looking at prior year income. It's the free application for federal student aid. It wants federal adjusted gross income. All right, let me ask you a question. How many of you guys have your W-2 January 8th? How many have a tax return January 20th done? Because it's always going to look at prior year. So we tell them the form will allow you to estimate. Estimate. If you're off $4,000 or $5,000, that will not cost you, mom and dad. Don't be off $100,000. All right? But get the form in the system. We're not unique in Fredonia. We're all rewarding early applicants. If they come early decision, we give them our best financial aid package as well, but then they're bound to. They're bound to that institution. So they've got to apply early. But they've got to know what my need is. I got to know what do I think in order to know what my need at that school is, I need to know what my EFC is. And there are loads, FAFSA Forecaster has an EFC calculator. I'm sure at every institution at this table, we all on our financial aid websites have TAP calculators and EFC calculators. That's critical, okay? Because once you know what your cost minus EFC equals need, and then you get your package once you're accepted in March, and if your need is $27,000 and that school's giving you $19,000, that's a phone call. That's a call to the financial aid office. We're $8,000 short. You know, we've done the math. We know what tuition fees, room, food, books at your school is, $24,000 or $38,000. You know, when we submitted our FAFSA, our EFC came right back at us. Congratulations, your FAFSA's been submitted. This is your EFC. We've done the math. Now we're looking at our package and we're short. You've just turned the tables on me because I want to close. I want that student, especially the music student, because they are our brightest and best, okay? So that's a message that I want to make sure you get through right away. Make sure that FAFSA is done as soon as possible after January 1st. Because, oh my God, if it's in the end of January, February, it doesn't matter what their need is. And, we always try to go back, but my best money's gone. At least in my institution, our best money's gone in the month of January. Why take the chance? Apply early. They have the ability later on, once the tax return's done, to go back to the FAFSA website and correct it with real, authentic tax return data. And let me tell you something else about what we do with music kids. As the Chief Enrollment Officer at Fredonia, boy, this has been fun this year, because we have theater and music fighting over our music theater kids who should get credit for them. But the bottom line is we set targets. And we know where we've been the last 3 years with our first-time, full-time freshmen by major. And so if we're saying, look, we need the 130 music kids, I can tell you, even as a public, in the month of March and April, we're calling those students. And we're saying, look, you've got your financial aid package. Is there anything we can do to bump it up? Is there anything unusual? We're actually reaching out to them. And again, because it's all about closing the deal. Closing the deal. in New York,